Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
Money FM 89.3. Good Monday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great start to the work week. On Industry Insight, we are kicking things off with a conversation about Deepseek, the new AI model created by a Hangzhou-based startup that has sent shockwaves across the globe, with US President Donald Trump calling the release a wake-up call for US technology firms. Indeed, since January 27, the Chinese generative AI has surpassed US-based AI chatbot ChatGPT as the number one downloaded free app. Reports say Deepseek reached 16 million downloads in its first 18 days, nearly double the 9 million downloads achieved by OpenAI's ChatGPT during its launch. Now, Deepseek's ChatGPT-like AI model, called R1, which has all the familiar abilities but operates at a fraction of the cost of OpenAI's, Google's or Meta's popular AI models. Now, the company claimed to have spent just $5.6 million on computing power for its base model, compared with the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars US companies spent on their AI technologies. US stocks took a major hit as a result. For example, NVIDIA, the leading supplier of AI chips, fell nearly 17% and lost $588.8 billion in market value, while Meta and Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, were also down sharply. As the tech industry comes to terms with the techniques Deepseek used to train its AI models and what it means for the broader AI space, we speak with the CEO of an AI-powered consultancy focused on training, advisory, and AI solutions for businesses, Dominique Rose Van-Wither of Final Upgrade AI, to get her insights. Dominique, great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be here.
Now, the emergence of Deepseek certainly is a major disruption to the AI industry, with huge implications across the global tech world. But more importantly, Deepseek's success highlights a growing global demand for accessible AI solutions. I want to know, from where you stand, what was your initial reaction to news of Deepseek's release?
Absolute excitement. I think everybody has been waiting for the latest of upgrades and innovation in the space that makes AI a lot more affordable. So I think this is fantastic for customers, for consumers, and for all companies globally. Makes it a lot more empowering also for developing nations to be able to use the technology rather than, let's say, very much being limited to, let's say, Silicon Valley or having very expensive models. So very exciting times, and I can only be happy and excited about more innovation and competition in the space.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And according to industry observers, Deepseek's model was accelerated in development by learning from past AI pitfalls and challenges that other companies have endured. But the thing is, Deepseek is an open source model. So this means just about anyone can use, modify, and contribute to its development. With that said, from a business perspective, should organizations be looking at how they're currently developing AI and whether they need to perhaps reorient their approaches?
Not really, in my opinion, because as much as we're talking to so many companies internationally about how they can bring AI in, it's just a question of which model that they base their technology on. If you're using an LLM, it almost doesn't make a big difference whether you switch from one to another at this point, because a lot of this is just going to become commoditized. If you fast forward another year, yes, you'll have new tools, you'll have new LLMs, you'll have new technology, but they're all going to deliver very similar results in the end. So it's not going to change necessarily the approach. What I see is more a lack of action for a lot of companies that are out there. And some of that is cost prohibitive. Some of it is a lack of understanding on what AI can do and maybe making some assumptions based on headlines. But, it's not going to empower or disempower necessarily the types of innovation that were already planned or that companies already want to execute upon.
Okay, unlike OpenAI's premium models, I think they can go up to perhaps like $200 per month. Deepseek's comparable tools are currently free. So what are the implications to AI-related businesses?
Well, you can't really compare the two because you would actually be comparing it more to, let's say, Llama, which is Meta's platform out of the US, because that's the open source play that's already available. In reality, for companies, it's a lot less about OpenAI's $200 model or the $20 model, because when you're talking about real innovation for companies, it's all about their APIs and what development costs have been built on it. I know of a lot of companies that are paying thousands of dollars a month in token costs by using APIs, because, of course, when you build your own solutions, now it's a different game. We work a lot on helping companies to transform and educate employees. So that obviously is a base level of understanding that companies need to get to. And, it's still massively underutilized within corporations, and their understanding of the technology is still relatively basic. But the most change that you're going to see over the next couple of years really is about APIs and having your own systems and programs that are hooking into, let's say, LLMs in order to do analysis, in order to provide you with insights on the business. And when you do that, you don't use ChatGPT's interface, you use the API models, and those are the ones that can really incur large costs, because it's just usually used at a completely different scale and a much larger one than individual employees using it.
Okay, but do you see this R1 model as the start of, a democratization of AI?
I wouldn't say it's the start, but it's definitely, the thing is every evolution of the technology, it means that the price is going to go down, the speed is going to go up, and the accessibility is going to go up. So we're all surprised because this level of the innovation came from China, and it came a lot sooner and faster than a lot of people assumed. But at the same time, last year Meta launched their first open source model and also very much surprised the market. Now it's more from a cost perspective and being a lot more inexpensive to train the models, even though there's also a lot of buzz around, well, are we comparing apples and oranges in terms of the numbers on how much, did it actually cost just about $5 million to train, or was that the last round of training? How did they optimize that, et cetera? And I think there's a lot of questions that we have in the space. I'm not doubting it. I just wonder, do we actually have an understanding of what we're comparing it to? At the same time, it's all about the cost. Like, the training model is available. It can be hosted by anyone internationally, and you can use it now to solve a lot more complex data questions that you have within your corporation. So it means a democratization anyway for a lot of companies globally.
Okay. Prior to Deepseek's release, we've always assumed that the most advanced AI models require massive data centers and other infrastructure. How do you think this will change the landscape?
I think it's anyway going to go in a very similar direction, but it's not necessarily always going to be about the training of models. It's going to be also around fine-tuning them. It's about coming up with models that are a lot more specific to very niche areas and businesses and sectors. And I think that should also help with a lot of the optimization, sustainability, and also just helping them to use energy a lot more efficiently. I mean, anyway, there's going to be a lot of demands on all of the data centers that are being built. If you even look at right now, what percentage of companies and people are actually utilizing AI to its full capability? I mean, we're probably getting into, like 5% really of companies truly utilizing AI to a lot more of its capability. We're still dabbling. So the needs are going to be massively increasing, and it doesn't matter actually if there's a lot more data centers, there's a lot more energy that's put into it. The reality is we're always going to need a lot more as more companies are being onboarded and understanding what they can do in this space in terms of efficiencies.
Dominique, the news of Deepseek's release also sparked a huge change in investments in non-tech companies on Wall Street. And we know U.S. stocks make up a historically large percentage of global investments right now. And tech companies make up a large percentage of the value of the U.S. stock market. How do you see the whole market being changed by this Deepseek?
Yeah, I think there's going to be increasing attention to how companies are bringing AI into their own organizations to optimize things. I mean, one company that I've been following a lot since all of last year, they focused on reinvigorating everything that they're doing with AI is Klarna, which obviously isn't public yet, but is preparing for IPO this year. And they've gone through and AI empowered every part of their organization, from product to customer service to operations to marketing, and they halved their workforce and are planning to halve their workforce this year. Now, imagine if that's your competitor. They've leveled a lot of the playing field, and really their cost structure looks completely different when they have so many fewer employees. And this starts to become a little bit of a question around investors and the optimization in the space, because now if you have to compete with Klarna, you're in a very difficult spot. I think a lot of the focus is going to be around how and who is very optimally bringing AI technology into optimization. I know Kroger is another really big one that has been putting AI into everything they do on the business operations front and retail, to everything from face recognition to recommendation engines around what customers want to buy at their stores. It's really fascinating. But those companies that are still sitting on the sidelines are going to become under increasing pressure from CEOs, from boards, in order to integrate technology in a much more dynamic and interesting and effective way. And I think so much of the focus right now when you're going to conferences is around, being able to get more customer insights or more value out of it. And I see a big piece that isn't necessarily being addressed by a lot of companies, which is how are you going to solve a lot of efficiencies and be able to grow faster because of those efficiencies.
Okay, coming back to Deepseek, since its release, we've been hearing a lot about its cost and also concerns about data privacy. We've seen increased scrutiny from governments worldwide on AI development. Do you think regulation will help or hinder innovation in this space?
Yeah, I think regulation is always partially hindering and partially supporting, and especially when it's the latest technology in the space. But I think here it's always advancing so much faster than regulators can keep up. But I'm a firm believer also you have to show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. So we're leaning towards more data privacy than you see the EU system that's going to be a lot more rigid and a lot more strict in that space. And obviously you've seen in the last couple of days, they've already banned it in numerous countries in the EU, now into the US, Canada, I think it's Belgium, I don't remember which exact countries, that are already having Deepseek being banned. And I think we're going to see increasing amounts of that. Now, of course, you can still have access to their open source model. And there's a lot of US platforms now, like, for example, Perplexity, that have taken the DeepSeek model and are now hosting it in the U.S. in order for people to be able to access it without worrying about where their data is potentially going. So you're seeing more innovation in the space because of the fact that it's open source and it can be utilized by players anywhere internationally. I think it's always a concern for any country. So I've been doing a lot of trainings all over the world because we help with upskilling employees and executive leadership teams on how to bring AI in. And we've dealt with so many of these privacy issues all over the world. It's one thing to try to solve it from a regulatory perspective philosophically, but actually every company and every country needs to almost decide what works best for them. I mean, we've been on training, for example, in Hong Kong, and they have to figure out, are they going to use Chinese models? Or are they going to use Western models? What if it's an international organization? Which systems are blocked? So I think so much of this is going to be localized. And then if you look at, for example, the UAE or Saudi Arabia, they're starting to develop all of their own models. And I think as you look towards the future, you're going to see a lot more of this localized approach, having your own LLMs, your own technology that is fine-tuned from some of the international models that's open source. And then that you can have a lot more control over where that data and where everything is being stored. I mean, I know Singapore is working on developing their own LLMs that will be a lot more culturally relevant to the population here. So I think you're going to see that everybody's going to have their own LLMs. You're going to have your own ones that are even for your company in the future, your own AI agents that are going to use a lot of that technology. And really, it's going to become so much more of a commodity. I mean, you're going to have millions of AI agents and technology platforms that you're just integrating in different ways. So I think healthy competition is fantastic. From the regulatory perspective, we have a lot to figure out, but open source gives a lot more opportunity, I think, to adjust to the future because you can store it locally. It's not a centralized system. And I'm much more of a believer on where that technology can go if more people are innovating and building upon it. So hopefully regulators will continue to have that approach of, enablement and the democratization of a lot of technology.
Well, lots to look forward to. Before we let you go, Dominique, the AI industry is known to evolve very rapidly, and we've just seen how disruptive new players like Deepseek can be. So where do we go from here? And from your perspective, how should investors navigate these shifts?
Oh, if I knew the question, or if I knew the answer to that, wouldn't we all want to know? I think it's almost impossible to predict where we're going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. My biggest advice is just obviously to watch the space very carefully, especially everything that's around vertical AI agents that are around niche tools in the space. There's obviously the big macro play that is investing in the major technology firms, and that's going to continue to play out regardless of whether open source and other platforms and Chinese platforms continue to enter the space, because they'll just naturally be able to innovate faster, invest more. But there's going to be a lot of room for smaller players to be able to come in, utilize some of the basic technology, and then fine-tune it to very specific business needs. I mean, we've got all sorts of things that are happening that are around vertical AI agents that are solving things like sales, marketing, customer service. And when those really start to get integrated this year, you're going to see a massive disruption in companies and how they're spending money in that space. I mean, if you think about it, there's anybody who sits at a computer, all of their work has just been optimized, but that also means that they can do more with much less time. And that has big implications from a strategy perspective on how companies are allocating funds to optimize and drive more efficient businesses. But it also means that, as investors, we need to make sure that we're investing in the right companies that understand all of that transformation and change. I think we know that when companies are not innovating fast enough, there's like one solid strategy in the space, and that's typically, unfortunately, it's atop the top. And I don't think that there's any companies right now out there that are saying, you know what, we've really cracked the AI optimization plan, other than the ones I mentioned, right, Klarna or Kroger, et cetera. Most companies are feeling like they are massively behind. Most shareholders, boards, et cetera, still feel like they are not innovating at the speed that they. So we need to understand how we can help to enable a lot more of them. There is no rule book or playbook that really helps people to understand it yet, and I think that's a lot of the innovation that we'll see over the next 1 to 2 years.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for your insights, Dominique, on this topic of AI. Dominique Rose Van-Wither, she is the CEO of Final Upgrade AI, which is an AI-powered consultancy focused on training, advisory, and AI solutions for businesses. Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.